afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our last career webinar of the season. Before we start, I would like to remind you that you can watch all our previous sessions on our YouTube channel. You can find conversations with BlackRock, PwC, and many others. You can also find the conversation with today's guests during our job fair in March. I also would like to remind you that on our official website, in the career section, you can submit your information, a short CV, which we will gladly share with our members. We also have open vacancies that you can check and apply for. So today we are very lucky to have 4 guests. They're all young and absolutely spectacular. We have William Britten, who joined me today in the studio. And William will moderate this session today because he wrote an article for our PE Inside Out magazine about 12 hints for a successful career. We are also joined by Jeffrey Kolbet from Elvinger Prussen and Manon Aubry, who's also the co-chair of our Private Equity for Women Club from RSM, and Laurent Hengesch from Ilavska, Vuillermoz capital. So welcome everyone. I would encourage you to make a short introduction of yourself so people know you better before we can engage into the actual conversation. William, let's start with you.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm William. I'm Business Development Director for Ocorian. I've been working in Luxembourg for the past 10 years, setting up investment funds for asset managers across all asset classes. Started in a supporting role, but always client-facing, and now I'm in charge of finding new business and developing the business for Ocorian in Luxembourg.
Thanks for having me. So my name's Jeffrey Kolbet. I'm a partner at Elvinger Prussen in the alternative funds team, part of our global investment management team. And like William, I've been working for a bit more than 10 years now, and I'm focusing mostly on setting up investment fund structures in the alternative assets area. I also advise clients for investments into investment funds, so on the investor side and investment manager side, and generally everything which relates to legal advice on the fund side.
I am working at RSM since almost 7 years. I'm manager, part of the alternative investment funds. I am heading the transfer agent and central administration team. And I'm also co-chairing the group Private Equity for Women, which counts around 100 members at the LPEA.
My name is Laurent. I'm Luxembourgish, and I started at the age of 24 in the finance industry in Luxembourg, in the fund servicing business back then. Then I founded my own private equity company last year, and this year we started our own fund. I'm now 31. We invest mainly in venture capital, later stage venture capital growth, in financial technology and also insurance technology.
Before we start, I just want to remind you that the best thing of this webinar is that you can ask your own questions. So whenever you have questions, please put it in the Q&A section so I can address them to our panelists. So William, let's dive into it.
Do it. Last time we discussed how to start your career in private equity, let's say in a broader sense, investment funds. We discussed a few aspects to take into consideration, which we today will recap, but not spend too much time on it, because a lot of the articles also is how to excel in your career and how to move up the ladder quickly, I want to say. Of course, if you want to start your career, you have to find a way in. And how do you find your first job in the industry? How do you get your foot in the door? This is the first question I would like to direct to Jeffrey.
I think it's fair to say that when you start your academic career, you're not quite sure what private equity, real estate investment fund business is all about. And so at the beginning, you might be struggling a bit to find a way in because you're actually not familiar with the topic itself. And so I think it really helps to create a kind of interest in a certain area of expertise that kind of entices you. There is a multitude of information available online, YouTube, LPEA, etc. So you have the source at your disposal and you can get information out of there. And I think that's important just to get a bit familiar with what you're looking for and what is it all about. And then I think the second step is then to get to know the market you're in. So in Luxembourg, I think it's quite an easy access to everything which relates to investment funds due to our very prominent position, not only in Europe, but on a worldwide basis. And it's quite easy to access people that are working in the industry. I think today we have the enormous privilege of having events that are started by not only professionals such as and including the LPEA, but also from an academic perspective, like the University of Luxembourg is doing quite a lot of forums. Yes, there are certain networking events that are open to the public. So everything, I think, ties in with an ecosystem that allows you to get or to gather more information. And then I think from there on, it's very important to get to know people in the field that you're interested to work in. And taking private equity as an example, you can easily select, I think, firms that you would like to apply for an internship to see what's it all about, what's the day-to-day business, what's the working culture, how are the people, and get to know kind of first contacts that allow you later on to find your way in, if I can say.
Well, I agree, of course. But in your case, it was a bit different because you're a lawyer or you studied law, so it was working in law. So, for example, no, I studied economics, and next to my studies, I worked as a wine salesman, and I knew that I could sell, and I wanted to work in finance somehow. So I applied for around 85 companies in Luxembourg, every company that had to do something with funds or in finance, and that were looking for some kind of business development manager. And at the end of the day, well, two companies replied. It was more like a cold call thing. What you have to do as a salesman often. I started at one company at the age of 24, which was quite young back then, but it gave me a good, let's say, intro into the fund industry, because you cannot actually study investment funds. I mean, the basics like investment management, yes, but how to set up a fund with all those new regulations coming every few months is quite difficult. And then what the company did, they said, okay, well, you can sell, but you don't know anything about funds or finance. So they said, okay, it's easier. You have a guy with soft skills and teach him the technical stuff than a technical guy teaching how to small talk and how to speak to people and shake hands. So what they then did, they sent me to different courses of some law firms and also the typical Big Four conferences and so on and so forth. So to get a bit of an overview of the market, but also of what are funds and such.
But if you would have to give some advice to the people watching, the follow-up point is be prepared. Jeffrey spoke last time about having a coherent CV, but also pursuing internships and trainings as much as possible. Of course, you two have a very different career path, I want to say. Start with the traditional one, with the academic track, university, but a university degree doesn't really prepare you, or a law degree doesn't really prepare you for a career in finance or investment funds. Jeffrey, how was it for you when you set yourself on track towards being an investment fund lawyer?
So first of all, I always wanted to become a business lawyer or lawyer specialized in financial services and dealing with commercial matters, because initially our career track is actually based on that of a typical attorney for smaller clients. So there's no real difference in terms of the academic track. And it's only at a very master stage or even postgraduate where you can apply then for courses that really are of interest to you and perhaps more specific to the work you want to, the area you want to work in later on. I think so for me it was from the beginning clear that I wanted to really work in a big law firm with these type of international business clients. And I did every summer break, I did internships at different law firms, but also at clients, banks, etc. Not only in Luxembourg, but for me it was also Dubai, for instance. I've done an internship in Dubai, even 2 internships, because I wanted to get to know Islamic finance as well. And so you really need to kind of see for yourself what kind of area you have an interest in, because sometimes it looks good on paper, but then the day-to-day is completely different. And so I actually started my career following an internship where I got an offer, which was here at Clifford Chance in Luxembourg. And I was initially working in the banking and finance industry, which dealt a lot with financings, so cross-border financings, guarantee security packages, etc. And I kind of discovered investment funds and private equity through my financing background, because I was involved in a couple of deals that had fund financing elements to it, and I found that the fund side was interesting as well, and so that kind of triggered my interest to actually make a move and to and then to start in another firm at the investment funds in the investment funds department. So that's also where you see that even if initially you take perhaps a slightly different route, and that's perhaps also what happened to Laurent, but sometimes you're with time you see what kind of interests you more, and then you can slightly adjust your career track and accordingly. So I think what's really important is to really love what you're doing on a daily basis, and you can only know what it's about when you're actually confronted to it. Yeah.
William, if I can add just to this, you just said that a coherent CV is important, or is something that is important. I do not fully agree, because what I like to see also when people apply for our company is I always like to see if somebody is finished school and then took a break, for example, was fed up with everything and worked as a painter in Spain for a year or whatever, and then decided, okay, to come back, because I think this outside of the box mentality is quite interesting. I mean, I would never hire a person that has just seen one thing and was working on one thing only. And I always like to see when people did something else and said, okay, well, I did not have any money, but I worked in Bulgaria for the Red Cross or whatever. We've seen a lot of those things, and then somehow had an interest in the investment business and have their track record. But it also depends on really the position. For example, our investment analysts that we hire, they have to have, of course, some studies in. They have to have the basics in corporate finance and M&A and so on. But I like to have a little. I took a break for 1 year. I wanted to do something else, and then because that's it gives a hint for a complex brain, and that's what we need, because we need to have people that think a bit outside of the box.
I agree, Laurent. And a year abroad is always a chance to grow, to gain life experience, which is very important later on when applying for a job, that you have the persona and not just seen school and university and show up for a job, but you don't know what life is about at the end. But it has to be a little of both. I'm sure during internships in the summer break abroad, you have similar experiences, although of course you're there to work mainly. Then you still have the weekends or after work, if you're lucky enough, that you can travel around and see the countries you're visiting. I think the combination of both is something that will really give you a chance to grow either during or before or after your academic path or your time spent at university. Me personally, I always encourage people, if they have the chance to do a semester abroad or do another Erasmus or something, to seize that opportunity, because once you start your professional career, it's very rare to find the time to spend some time abroad. You might be lucky to be sent to a different office abroad. I think, Jeffrey, you did the same thing. Was it in Hong Kong, right? You have to utilize when you have the chance. Later on, when you're working full time, it's unlikely you will find the time to go abroad again. But let's say you've either set your academic track early on, did internships and focused on your studies, or you just decided, I have to evaluate and want to follow my strengths. I want to pursue a career in finance. And when you're at that position, to find the way in, you check industry associations and career sections like the LPEA section or Luxembourg for Finance. And then you find the vacancy that sounds just like you or something you would like to do. What are the next steps? How was it for you, Manon, to bring you into the conversation?
For me, it was a bit a chance, because I joined RSM as an intern and I tried the audit department. And finally, probably a few months after spending time in the audit department, I just knew that it wasn't done for me. I was not a good leader, and I believed that it was not my thing, but I wanted to explore more. I discussed with the partners, they discussed with me, and they said, well, she has quite a great experience. She loves marketing, she loves law, regulatory, etc. So maybe we can ask her to discover the other departments. And I joined the compliance department at the very beginning. So I discovered the AML KYC word, which is the sexiest word in in Luxembourg. But it allowed me to learn a lot in the structuration of the SOPAFIs, funds, GPs, etc. And then I wanted to turn more on the front office, because I was a back office for the compliance, of course. And I wanted to go front office and to discuss with the clients. So I went to the PSF, and I wanted to join the fund admin team and to develop more the team and to discover. And well, audit finally taught me a lot because I learned the accounting side, reviewing the accounts, but compliance as well. It helped me a lot because we need the AML, KYC side on a daily basis. And my personality helped me also to gain the client trust. So for me, it was a little bit of a mix. I explore different services, and I guess I found my services now, but it might evolve during the career.
With one company, then I just wanted to say something. So I calculated this morning at how many company I worked until now. So even the internships you do in school, so I was in a school where you had to do like a 2-week internship or 3-week internship, and so in total I worked at 17 companies. So I calculated all of them. So you have to do this. It's quite fun. But just I started at the age of 15. That includes all the internships that I've done. So it really was everything. I nearly did everything. I don't know if you guys counted once, but it's quite interesting to do that.
Leads up to the point we spoke about earlier, is gaining life experience. I remember reading an article about what every professional should have done in his career or leading up to it would be work in service, wait tables, focuses attention, and attention for detail, making clients happy essentially, because it's a theme that plays a long role in our industry especially. So that all leads up to your career path, to your to the university you want to attend. But I don't want to dig in too much in that early on in your career path. I want to really focus more on how to start off, but also how to excel in the career. So doing different internships during your university or after university. I think all these different paths will get you where you want at the end. Before you convinced the people to take you on as intern or later on as junior or as now team leader, what tips would you just give? Let's do a very brief round. You would give someone to prepare for his interview. So the theme here is be prepared, but what does that mean when you're facing an interview?
For an interview, well, I guess you should be prepared. You should know the employer. You should also be confident. You know who you are, and you should demonstrate it to the employer. For me, curiosity is very, very important. It's key. It also curiosity will lead you to different aspects in your career. For example, when you apply to a job, I would recommend to have a look on the website to see how it works in the company, how is the values, the corporate values, etc. And probably to be interested in different fields, accounting, tax, regulatory, sales, marketing, back to front office. It's very important to understand the company you would like to apply. And then if you show interest, then you will receive the interest from the employer, and you have to demonstrate that you are capable to bring something to the company. It's not because you are young that you cannot contribute. It's very important to be confident and to know it before you go to an interview.
Why do people employ you? That's the main thing. Because I have one guy I'm working with. He is 81 years old. very successful career. And he always says to me, Laurent, I need your energy and you need my brains. Okay, that's the agreement that we have. Why do people know you, want you? I mean, you have to grow within the company, of course. You have to learn stuff, but also you have to work. You know, there's stuff to do. That's why they pay you in general to do stuff. But you can also bring some experience, but you gain the experience doing the work. So, but if it's now a very, very entry level job, I think it's nowadays the market is a bit crazy, also because of globalization, because you can get people from anywhere in the world, that people expect already from you. At the age of 21, you have a 6 years working experience, which is absolutely nonsense, of course. So in our case, it's a lot about if you enter as an intern or a junior, it's more about also the spirit. Okay, what is, are you nice? Okay, so that kind of stuff, which is more important, because at the end of the day, the tools to work you learn at the job, you don't need to bring as an entry level. The basics have to be there.
And I do agree, because when you are an intern or junior, you will not probably bring technical assets to the company, but the junior people most of the time has energy, imagination, they can think about the process, they can also contribute to the social integrity of the company, think another way around to rethink about the processes, the procedures, and probably bring a fresh touch to the company.
That's very true. So essentially, be yourself, right? You can't live anybody else's life. Don't try to form yourself to appear differently. What Laurent said last time, that is very important for people to fit in a small company, to be cool enough, I want to say. One tip also, dress for the job you want, right? In venture capital, that would mean don't wear a tie, Laurent, am I right?
I like also to do it the other way around. So I'm one of the very, very few venture capital investors that actually like to wear a suit and tie. And when I worked in the fund, the more serious asset management business with all the large investment managers, I like to use or to wear stuff like this, so to look a bit different than the usual. It's not what you wear, it's how you wear it, I would say.
I like
That's
that.
Cool.
We'll continue on that, Laurent. Thank you. One main point: understand the value chain. You know, what keeps on the lights, and understand the perspectives and drivers of the company. For Manon, we're different internships from the back, mid to front office. How's it for you, Laurent, when you just started?
If you are in business development, I mean, you are responsible to bring clients in. And then basically internally you fight then with the compliance department. Manon, you can maybe agree with
You can be both. I'm the proof.
At the end of the day, who's paying the compliance department? It's the client that the business development brings in. So I think that's people need to be aware of this also in the back office in the future. Compliance is important. Regulation is very important, but the value chain of the business, I mean, depends on. There's so many different businesses in the fund industry or in finance in Luxembourg.
The main role of Luxembourg companies is compliance, like you said. It's regulatory driven by law and by directives, by CSSF circulars. But with all this administration going on and being sure to see or doing what's right in front of you, the companies in Luxembourg often forget what keeps on the lights. You know, it's the client's transactions, it's getting the investors onboarded and happy, and the client's happy, making sure that the assets come in, that the money comes in, so you can actually have billable hours or bill your invoices to make sure the company you're working for is making money. But if you don't have that, folks, you don't understand what actually the company does at the end, because often people don't see the whole value chain, but they're just specialists in this small part of the value chain. They don't understand what happens left and right of them. They only focus on what they know, but that doesn't lead to the overall goal. People have to understand what is the goal of a company, and who are the clients who pay them.
I think I fully agree with you, William. And I think one of the advantages for us, at least, in the fund management, is that you can see the full spectrum of activities from the beginning of the fundraising process through the investment period and finally the liquidation phase. So you get to see the whole value chain, and I think it's really important for people to understand that they're not just helping in drafting corporate resolutions, but behind all of this, there are actual transactions that are, dealing with financings to SMEs that are in need of that financing. And so it's always important to know what you're working on and what's the outcome of it. It's not just the fact that you're working on a specific document, but the actual value chain behind is important, and you need to keep that broader spectrum in mind when you're working on perhaps isolated tasks somehow that could be, that might not be always very realistic or something to grasp, actually, because you're not seeing what's going on behind the curtain. So that's one thing. I also just wanted to come back to your first point on regulation. I think you're right, and I also agree with Laurent. We need to keep, the client is king, and we need to make sure that every onboarding experience works efficiently and smoothly and in the best interest of the client. But I would separate it from the whole bunch of regulations, because if we're very honest with ourselves, regulation has always created opportunities. And I think it's fair to say that Luxembourg has immensely benefited from AFMD, lately SFDR. So regulations that people might initially think, well, that's going to put another layer of complex regulation on top of it and make everything more, increase the administrative burden, etc. But in the end, it turns out that now, for instance, ESG funds, this is something that's really thriving. It's a thriving business. And so I think we shouldn't forget the opportunities behind those regulations. There's always, upside, downside, but I think it's a two-sided benefit.
It's a great point, Jeffrey. Thanks for that. But that also only comes if you understand the value chain and if you continue to sharpen your profile, which is another point. Laurent, you mentioned earlier, to understand what funds are, there's no course at a university unless you, I think, apply for the LPEA Academy soon. There might be a course. Going to industry associations, law firms especially have their own academies, teach you all about fund structuring, but also about new regulation and the opportunities behind that. I can just encourage anyone to join these groups. For example, the AIF Club of EY, which is a great gathering for people, and also just to exchange ideas, but to have insights by guest speakers who will always give you a different perspective, a different view, be it back then on Brexit or on new regulation.
You just said it's not possible really to study, and I said that, sorry. And that will change also in the future, because I'm now, the University of Luxembourg reached out to me, and I'm giving a course in September, how to set up a fund and what kind of different funds there are in the investment management course of the Department of Finance. So I think it is always, the basics are basically all the same. What other different regulations are coming, that is something you do in the course of your work anyhow. So this is the thing that I think it's important, that we also from the industry give insight with the students on how that business works. And also from a Luxembourg economic point of view, what tremendous money is flowing into the Luxembourg government through to our work that we do. And we compared to other businesses, we get rather, let's say, less exposure in the society, unfortunately. But so that is also quite an interesting part that people should know. When you score your first job and you're working, that you don't just think, okay, this is all I need to know from A to Z, my day-to-day job, but actually be intrinsically motivated or have intrinsic motivation to gain more knowledge, to gain more experience, right? You only get that when you exchange ideas, when you attend these kind of courses, for example, that can be and that can also demonstrate to your employer or your future employer how
how much effort you put into getting ahead, because when you work a full-time job and then still attend a course in the evening or on the weekends, that really demonstrates how motivated you are and how quickly you want to get ahead.
William, I just wanted to add, give a little tip. There are, of course, some brochures of the LPEA, ALFI, Luxembourg for Finance, and Chamber of Commerce on investment funds. But if you want to dig deeper, and I don't want to, advertise any big four here, but you all know probably the Ernst & Young investment fund Bible. Everybody's nodding, but it is something that people that are listening now to, I would suggest download it. You get it for free. You can even order it in a hard copy. It's such a thick book home, and then read the sections about AFM, SIF, RIFE, and then you have already a distribution and something like that, and then you have a really good overview on the technical part of investment funds in Luxembourg. So it's the EY investment fund, whatever. I call it Bible. We all call it Bible in finance here in Luxembourg. So I would suggest that.
You'll find it on their homepage, and I couldn't agree more. Each junior colleague that joined, it was something, here, read this first, and then you should see their face, because it's a really thick package of literature about investment funds and regulation in Luxembourg. One of my first internships in a law office when I was 16, he said, we don't have to know everything, we have to just know where to look it up. And that's one of those examples where the Big Four and all law firms really provide a whole lot of insights and thought pieces and just summaries of fund structures where you can look it up each time. And even today, sometimes I still have to look up the details for a specific case when a client comes across and asks me, but I need a solution for this. Find a mentor and be a mentor, right? Finding a mentor is rare. Someone senior who can share their experience, someone who actually cares and will support you getting ahead is even rarer. Me personally, I benefited greatly from a mentor early on in my career who set me on my path, but I will share more about that later. Manon, would you care to share your insights and your thoughts on mentoring?
You probably do not realize when you start your career how important it is to have a mentor. You have to find someone who believes in you, as you said, who cares about you, really, and who will give you objective advice, because in your career, sometimes you will have to make some choice. You have to move from a company to another, and you are probably wondering if you are taking the good decision, and you need to ask someone, but you will not ask to your parents because they do not know the industry. Your friends will probably not be 100% objectives. You need to have someone who will give you real tips and to help you to take good decisions. It might be someone who is senior, as you said, because you should be inspired by this person. Otherwise, it will not match. From my side, I've met many people who inspired me, but I met two women in my career, one from RSM, who always supported me in all the decisions I've taken during my career at RSM, but also when I wanted to join the LPEA, for example. And I also met Raja a few years ago already, who encouraged me to contribute more to the community in the Luxembourg, in the LPEA, and he helped me a lot during my career, and especially now. I feel a little bit relief since I have someone who watch my back.
Important is, if you have a mentor, he will help you to evaluate your path, to reevaluate, I want to say, each year if you're still in the right direction, if your heart is still into it, if it's still the path you want to pursue. So at the time, she asked me, where do you see yourself in 3 years, in 5 years, or in 10? And my honest response was, I don't even know what I want for lunch today. So when you're so busy and so focused on what's in front of you in the day-to-day work, sometimes you forget to look at the long-term projection of your career. So you won't stay at one company forever. You won't stick in that same role forever, you want to say. So really reevaluate where you want to go and what you what your goal is after all. So that really helped me when she told me about her career path. When she said, "Okay, I was an analyst first. So from back office to mid office to front office, right? First analyst, and then being the smart cookie during sales pitches, up to a client-facing or commercial role, which she said will prep me for a C-level position where she wants to be after 3 or 5 years in each of those positions that came previously."
Unfortunately, I had not much mentorship from my family, or fortunately, I mean, they work for the government, so they couldn't give me much insight on what's going on outside in the world. And so I was pretty lucky that I had a mentor, an Irish guy called Barry Black. Basically had a lot of experience. He used to work for JP Morgan and downsized a bit after a while. He wanted to become more quiet. But my first job was at a company. We had an office of 20, 30 people, but he managed the company like it was like 10,000 people. So we had like very clear processes, and that was my first corporate job where I really had to learn. He gave me some great tools, some great basics, also how to write a proper business English email. Those are the small things that were important. And also in the meetings when I just forgot and I spoke too much, he always stopped me then saying, in the interest of time, let's continue with. So he was really, really structured. That helped me a lot. And then after I went to the next company, I did not find a mentor there, unfortunately, because I always found it important to work for people that are better than you. And so I had to leave the company after 2 years. Yeah, and then founded my own company, or started my own company, but also found very good business partners on the side that we established a very long lasting relationship.
I think I would echo what my co-panelists have just explained. Perhaps I could add that when you're not finding the right mentor or a mentor at all, it's not an issue for you to nonetheless progress your career, because in some cases there won't be a perfect match and you might not be able to find the right mentor at the right time, but that's not an issue. I think alternatively, there are quite a lot of books and documents on progressing your career, dealing with management, dealing with negotiation, dealing with any kind of skills that a mentor might be teaching you in order to progress. So it's not an issue if you don't have a mentor, just for that to be said, because you can also actively develop your skills individually without having a mentor.
Yeah, but for me, it's very important to be inspired and to spot the right things on people. You need to learn from them. When you start, you need to learn from everyone. You need to listen and to take time. It's very important. When we are young, we tend to forget it. Honestly, I can say it. Now I'm coming a little bit older, so it's it's getting better and better. But yeah, it's very important. If you don't find one particular person, that's not an issue. But you should definitely speak to people and to let yourself.
And have people you look up to and that have kind of a role model. But I think for me, when talking about a mentor, for me, it's an active role that the mentor is actually mentoring you, and you're in a special relationship with that person, which is different, I think, from people that inspire you, which could also be, I don't know, people from CEOs from big companies that you're looking up to, and so I think it's slightly different because you have I think a different relationship with a mentor, and so in my case, I think I had several mentors over the life of my career, but I've never had that one mentor just individually. So I was always being in mentoring relationships with different people on different topics, because not every mentor has all the skills you need to progress, and so you need to also to kind of pick and choose the right mentors for the right skills.
You have positive and negative role models, and you have people who are not so inspiring, but you have to work for, you have to deal with them. Pick and choose what you want to learn from them. There are positive and negative examples. You learn how you don't want to do it or how you shouldn't do it. Plus you learn of how to improve and how to get ahead. Either way, just be sure to, even if you have a negative experience with someone, be sure to not accept failure, but actually utilize it and grow from that experience and move ahead.
So last year, I met with the founder of a startup that he sold for $2 billion US at the age of 27. And we met at the Ritz in London. And he had a T-shirt on saying, very big, "Make mistakes fast." Okay, that's what it said. They didn't let him into the Ritz because they had to wear a tie. But the central story is that is important. I mean, if you don't have a mentor in the beginning, just try. Always push. And make the mistakes in the beginning. I made so many mistakes. I lost so much money, so in the beginning of my career, like literally everything. But then you have to keep on working and pushing, and then you really learn from the mistakes. I mean, somebody who doesn't make any mistakes is not successful. That's for sure.
Exactly. That brings me to attitude, mindset, and ambition. Right? Having a positive attitude and being adaptable, being self-motivated, and being motivated to grow and learn are key values employers look for. And we've heard from Laurent earlier what he looks for in a CV. Of course, it's always different in depending on what role you're applying for. But stay confident and open-minded, which I mentioned earlier. Even if you have negative experiences, but how does that play into your personal experience and also in the interviews you're having today, if you want to hire junior staff?
Attitude is very important at the very beginning when you start in a company and during all your career, because what you shows are reflected on the team work, on your colleagues, and it's very important. And sometimes the first impression, even if it is the wrong one, matters. So it's very important to stick to your inner you, to your inner values, but to show that you're confident who you are on a daily basis and what you can bring to the company and to your colleagues. It's very important for me to have a positive attitude and to learn from your mistakes, as you said, but also to keep calm, take time. I know it's difficult when you're young, but it's very important, trust me.
At the end of the day, it is just a job, okay? So unless you work as a doctor or something like that in an airplane or in a helicopter, but at the end of the day, it's just a job. So make your mistakes. It is not as important as you think. It is just what you make out.
True.
I think if you're relaxed and you're happy and you have a job where you would like, so for example, this sounds of course horrible for people that work in a corporate career. So I really love what I do. So every morning I cannot wait to finally start working. I also don't understand why people do not work on Saturdays or Sundays, because I love to do stuff or do some research on the business that we are doing. So if you find something that is truly fun, then I mean, everybody, that's the dream of everybody. But I can only say that chase the dream and live it also when you found it. If it really fulfills you and if you really love what you do, then you don't need to work a single day in your life. That's how you say it.
Find balance and perform self-care, which would mean find a job you enjoy. And at this part, it is emphasized on enjoy. If you're fortunate enough to be like Laurent and love what you do, you're very fortunate, you're blessed. Remember, every job will have inconveniences. It won't be the dream job, or not forever at least. You'll quickly come to see that it's just another company with the same mistakes or the same errors that other companies make. But that doesn't have to be all negative, but you can find something to improve and leave your mark on. But also, leading up from earlier, remember that the job doesn't give your life meaning. You leave the job at the door, you come home, and it shouldn't necessarily take in all the free time you have when you're not working. Travel, meet friends, especially in finance. We're here for a reason, because either we really like what we do, you want to not starve, and finance gives people opportunity that come from very little, I want to say. And if you really put the work in, you can excel quite quickly. Like you said, to shatter the illusion you might have now, you have to put the work in. Yeah, long hours, high pressure, tough deadlines, they're all common companions when you work in private equity or in investment funds. And you will need to grind. Yeah, you will need to really put the work in. I said it, I quoted AC/DC, and it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
There's always somebody better than you. Just don't forget.
That only means you have to work harder than those around you and say yes to things that scare you. Because if you just say, oh no, I don't think I can do that, or you're afraid of a task, and then the mindset, you sabotage yourself. Be sure that you can, that it's a challenge. Everything is a challenge, but only if you master those challenges, you grow and you get ahead. But also set realistic goals and realistic deadlines, because you tend to be under pressure. Don't crack under the pressure, but learn to deal with it, how to manage it. Like I said earlier, perform self-care and find balance in what you do.
And perhaps innovative, trust yourself. Work will help you, of course. You will gain knowledge, but trust yourself. This is the main asset you will bring to a company. Is yourself, is your personality. So just think about you, trust yourself, and bring something positive to the company. Remember who you are, and if you are there, because there is a reason, and you are not here just for showing up something. You are here to bring something, and we trust you. The company trusts you, so believe in yourself. It's very important to think about it when you start your career, especially when you're a young woman and you work in the main industry. As today, I'm with a panelist, men's panelist today. So it's very important to be confident during your career, especially when you start.
And I would maybe add, you have to know yourself, because coming back to what William said early on, how to excel, I think in any given activity or industry or field, whatever the actual whatever the actual area you're in, you need to have at least three. I would say two characteristics out of three. Either so at best you have the three of them, but you need to have two, which is being smart, being nice, or putting in the hard work. And so you need to know yourself to determine, ideally if you have the three, you'll excel. It's a matter of time. And if not, you'll have to balance out and know yourself to make sure that you catch two of the three.
It's a question for you, Laurent. Irene lost the name of your Bible. So what was the name of the book?
I will tell Irene, of course, in private as well, because Irene will also start with our company sometime.
Maybe you can remember some mistakes that you made.
Honestly, I do a mistake per day, to be honest. Fortunately, I did some mistakes, but I learned from them. If I wouldn't, I would not be a good manager, and I still hope that I will become better and better on a daily basis. But I do some mistakes. Still today, I have to manage more my feelings. I have to manage more my opinions sometimes. It's very difficult, but I try to learn from them, and it's very important. I'm a completely different person since the 7 years I work here at in Luxembourg. Time helps you, that's for sure, but mistakes, I cannot spot one in particular, but I do it sometimes. That's okay. You have to forgive yourself as well.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. But I think to summarize what you said is lead by example and inspire others. So, you can't have a zero mistake culture because people will be afraid to actually do something. You have to have safeguards to avoid mistakes, of course, but if you don't try, you'll never reach the goal.
For more experienced hire, how important are the language requirements?
Take it, Laurent.
I'm happy to take this as a Luxembourger. Manon, how is your Luxembourgish?
Not so well.
Okay, so no, what we can say definitely, and I think we all agree, and also why this is being done in English. I think working in finance, English is the main language. You don't need any other language, at least if you work in the business as such. French is a big help. I would love to say something different, but you do not need to speak Luxembourgish in Luxembourg, unless you want to become a Luxembourger, which I highly suggest. And yeah, but in general, I think even in this panel, it's only Jeffrey and me that we speak Luxembourgish, and it's everything in English.
But I also encourage people in Luxembourg to follow. For example, I take a dance class in Luxembourg school, well-known Luxembourg school for older Luxembourgish people, and just try to speak with your colleagues in Luxembourgish. It's very, very important to learn more languages. But there is no special requirements on the languages, except for example, if you want to be a private banker working in a Nordic bank, of course, you will have to probably speak Swedish or something like this. So,
well, languages are an advantage, of course. I find very admirable to be fluent and be able to have conversations in other languages. But Manon's point, speaking your client's language is definitely an advantage and useful. But speaking, I want to say the house language, to see, is it a French company, is it a German company? Everybody would tell you, no, we're an international organization. But if, I don't know, 80-90% of the staff is German or French, then you will not come so far in the coffee corner or in the break room if you don't speak the local language. Yeah.
Also, I think Jeffrey, in terms of his job, if you want to be registered at the Luxembourg bar, I mean, you have a list number 4 for all the outside of Luxembourg and number 1. But in general, if you work as a lawyer, I think it's you need to speak French. Because Jeffrey, maybe you can say.
Wow,
something.
Laurent, you know more on the formalities than I do.
Yeah,
wow.
I pay lawyers.
I'm very impressed. No, that's right. I think, but there has been some changes lately on the whole process. So it's not. I think that the language barriers are not really are not really comparable to those that have been in place when I started my career, where you actually needed to be able to speak German or Luxembourgish, at least a couple of words, because you had to do private clients as well. What was the so-called carnet de stage, where you had to do a couple of litigation matters, where usually your clients were not able to perhaps speak English because they were more older Luxembourgish people. Or
so English is mandatory, just to say it, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's no way around it. But then on other languages, it's definitely an add-on and something that is valued, especially as you said, with different clients from different geographical areas. It really makes sense to onboard that language as well. But generally, I have the impression over the last 5 years now, if you're in Luxembourg City, I think English has become the main language spoken out there, and it's really international. So I think that it's not an issue at all.
So I would like to thank everyone for attending today, for sharing your insights. Thank you very much.